Throughout history, humanity has faced invisible enemies that have reshaped civilizations. We're talking about pandemics. And today, we're going on a journey through time to understand these world-changing events. So, buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. Let's start way back in ancient times. Picture this. The mighty Roman Empire, a symbol of power and sophistication. But around 165 AD, something terrible arrived, likely brought back by soldiers from the east. It was called the Antonine Plague, believed to be smallpox or measles. It swept through the empire for 15 years, claiming millions of lives, including the Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself. Imagine the chaos. The once unstoppable Roman legions were weakened, the economy faltered, and the empire's golden age began to dim. This plague showed that even the most powerful empires were vulnerable to the smallest of microbes. Fast forward a few centuries to the 6th century, the Byzantine Empire, the successor to Rome in the east, was at its peak under Emperor Justinian. He was trying to reconquer the old Roman territories, but an even bigger battle was brewing. The Plague of Justinian, our first recorded run-in with the bubonic plague, exploded out of Egypt in 541 AD. It spread like wildfire across the Mediterranean. Contemporary accounts describe a horrifying scene, with so many people dying that there was no one left to bury them. At its height, it was killing thousands a day in Constantinople alone. This catastrophe crippled Justinian's ambitions, decimated the population, and some historians argue it ushered in the Dark Ages. But the bubonic plague wasn't done with us. It returned with a vengeance in the 14th century, this time with a name we all know: the Black Death. This was the big one. It's estimated to have wiped out up to half of Europe's population. Can you even imagine that? Half the people you know gone. It traveled along trade routes carried by fleas on rats that hitched rides on merchant ships. The sheer scale of death was unimaginable. Society was turned upside down. With so many workers gone, the old feudal system started to crumble. Peasants who survived could demand better wages, leading to massive social and economic shifts. It was a dark, terrifying time, but it also paved the way for the Renaissance. Out of the ashes of the Black Death, a new world began to emerge. Now, let's cross the Atlantic to the Americas in the 15th and 16th centuries. When European explorers arrived, they brought more than just guns and steel. They brought diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza. The indigenous populations had absolutely no immunity to these new pathogens. The result was a demographic catastrophe of staggering proportions, often called the Great Dying. Entire civilizations, like the Aztecs and Incas, were devastated not just by conquest, but by these invisible invaders. Some estimates suggest that up to 90% of the indigenous population perished. This tragic event fundamentally and permanently altered the course of history in the Americas. Moving into the modern era, the world became more connected, and so did our diseases. The 19th century saw multiple waves of cholera pandemics. Originating in India, cholera spread globally thanks to increased trade and travel. What made cholera so scary was how fast it could kill. It caused severe dehydration, and people could go from healthy to deceased in a matter of hours. But this pandemic also had a silver lining. It forced cities to clean up their act. A British physician named John Snow famously traced a cholera outbreak in London to a contaminated water pump. His work was revolutionary and became the foundation for modern epidemiology and public health. We started to understand that sanitation and clean water were key to fighting disease. Then came the 20th century and the deadliest pandemic in modern history. The 1918 flu, often misnamed the Spanish flu. It didn't actually start in Spain, but Spain was one of the few countries not censoring its press during World War I, so they reported on it freely. This influenza virus was unusually lethal, and it had a strange preference for young, healthy adults. In just about 2 years, it infected a third of the world's population and killed an estimated 50 million people, more than died in the entire First World War. It came in multiple waves, each one seemingly more deadly than the last. The world shut down in a way that feels eerily familiar now. Quarantines, face masks, and closed public spaces. The 1918 flu was a stark reminder of how vulnerable our globalized world was to a fast-moving respiratory virus. Jumping ahead, the late 20th century brought a new kind of pandemic, HIV/AIDS. First identified in the early 1980s, this virus attacked the immune system, leaving people vulnerable to other infections. Unlike the fast-burning pandemics of the past, AIDS was a slow-motion catastrophe. It was surrounded by fear, stigma, and misinformation, but it also sparked a powerful global response. Activists demanded action, scientists raced to understand the virus, and the world slowly learned to talk about and treat this disease. While there's still no cure, incredible advances in antiretroviral therapy have transformed HIV from a death sentence into a manageable chronic condition for many. The fight against AIDS taught us crucial lessons about public health, human rights, and the power of community advocacy. Of course, we can't talk about pandemics without mentioning our most recent global struggle. The COVID-19 pandemic showed us that in our hyper-connected 21st century world, a new virus can circle the globe in a matter of weeks. It brought the world to a standstill, testing our healthcare systems, our economies, and our social fabric in ways we hadn't seen in a century. But it also spurred unprecedented scientific collaboration. In less than a year, we had multiple effective vaccines, a process that used to take a decade or more. We've learned so much about remote work, supply chains, and the critical importance of global cooperation. So, what's the big takeaway from this whirlwind tour of history's pandemics? They are devastating, tragic events that cause immense suffering. But they are also catalysts for change. They've toppled empires, reshaped economies, and driven incredible scientific and social progress. From the ruins of the Black Death came the Renaissance. From the cholera outbreaks came modern sanitation. From every pandemic, we learn something new. It's a tough lesson, but history shows that humanity is resilient. We adapt, we innovate, and we endure. Thanks so much for watching this journey through time with us. If you found this interesting, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Stay curious.